Hi, this is Adam Olin, CEO of Russell & Spark, a boutique branding and marketing firm. After 25 years in creative agencies, I realized that the very best reviews came from my story training sessions. So I turned them into a keynote, but I didn't know how to break into speaking. I'm so glad I found Laurie-Ann Be in Demand podcast and joined her community of speaking professionals. From book publishing to sales strategies to the details that distinguish true professionals, it's been invaluable. Even if you can't get into her exclusive community calls, you can still listen to the podcast.
Hey, I want to give a huge shout out to Laurie-Ann because working with her has completely changed how I approach speaking. I'm not a stranger to public speaking at all. I've done plenty of it, but I've never worked with a speaking coach before. And let me tell you, the difference between going it alone and working with Laurie-Ann, night and day. She helped me develop my signature speech, and not only did it highlight my expertise and authority really well, but it converted 60% of my audience onto my email list. 60%. And did I mention, thanks to her, I landed my first paid speaking gig. Laurie-Ann's signature speech framework made it so easy to put together a talk that opened with a bang, kept my audience engaged, and most importantly, made it effortless for them to take the next step with me. She is an absolute pleasure to work with. Super smart, really strategic, and honestly just so much fun to be around. So, if you're on the fence about working with her, do it. You'll wonder why you waited so long. Thank you, Laurie-Ann.
You know those speakers who don't just talk, they actually make you feel something? It's not just in their words, it's in the energy behind those words. And guess what? You have that same power. You can do that also starting today, right now. Today, we're going to be talking about the energy of your voice, how to speak in a way that moves people, whether you're on stage in a meeting or just telling a story at the dinner table. Are you a coach, a consultant, or a service provider? Well, you are in the right place because this is Be in Demand, and I am your host, Laurie-Ann. And this podcast is all about how to leverage speaking opportunities to position you as the expert, attract the perfect clients to you, and monetize your expertise. So stick around and you will learn how to start using your voice so that you speak in a way that actually moves people. I am so glad that you are here because today I'm going to be giving you 3 different points about your voice and how using your voice can actually attract the right people. It can draw people closer to you. You will make them feel something and not just feel like you're being a little monotone because you've said the same line or lines a few times in your past. People don't always remember exactly what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And I know this for a fact because there is a story that I tell about a jackknife. And this is back in my leadership days because it's a great analogy about leadership. But people would come up to me and they would use other words besides jackknife. They would use words like pocket knife or just knife, always reminding me that people don't always remember exactly what you say, but here's how it landed for them. But the fact that they came up to me to share with me how much they enjoyed the story, you could tell it touched them. Even if they didn't remember it was exactly a jackknife, they remembered how the story made them feel. So that's the whole point about the energy behind your voice and the power of your voice. You know, we do have a tendency to sound a little mundane. You know, the things that we say again and again and again, which could be our elevator pitch. If you've noticed, I'm not using some canned introduction for my podcast anymore. Each time I'm saying something a little different, and the energy behind it, like how did I show up today to record my podcast? So there can be things that we say over and over and over again. But this also reminds me of back in my healthcare days, I would do these treadmill tests. And one of the particular cardiologists, Dr. Barry, that I worked with, there was this funny story that we talked about every single time we worked together. And it was pretty frequently. And some days we were doing 2 or 3 of them back to back, and he would say the same story. Now, the story was designed to motivate the patient that was on the treadmill to go a little bit farther, that they could do it, because he needed to get the most out of them. He needed them to go to full capacity so that he could get a really good reading from the test, which also benefits the patient. As the patient is in the groove and he can tell that they might be getting a little winded, again, he's watching the EKG and he's watching the heart rate go up. He starts talking to me. He starts talking to the patient, you have to beat the last patient that we just had. And this could have been the first patient of the day, but the patient doesn't know this. And so now he's actually talking to me, Laurie-Ann, how long did that last patient go? And so now he's just like reading off of me. Now remember, this story plays out every single time. And I would pick a number. I think he went 9 minutes. Was that before or after his prosthetic leg fell off? I was like, oh, geez, I can't remember. No, I think he ran 9 minutes and then the prosthetic leg fell off. So now the doctor is saying, oh, so then he hopped for 1.5 minutes, right? And I would just giggle about this every single time, because the story was told differently every single time. And the energy behind Dr. Barry and how he was trying to inspire and motivate his patient, he always showed up. Like if he had showed up and just kind of talked like this, like, hey, Laurie-Ann, how long did that last patient go for? I probably wouldn't have been able to engage with him on a regular basis like that. So keep in mind and just start to feel the energy that you are speaking in, and also feel the energy, notice the energy when other people are speaking. Do they sound like they're being fully present? Because remember, it's not just what we say, it's not just the words, it's the energy, it's the tone, it's the pacing, it's your presence. And I'm going to talk more about all of those. But I also want to share with you that I want you to trust yourself. Trust yourself that you're going to say the right thing. Trust yourself that when you get on a podcast interview, that you are going to answer the questions eloquently and perfectly, just the way that you want the audience to hear them, because you're going to be fully present and not thinking about in the future or what you said in the past, or worried about what this is all going to sound like to the audience that's listening to I just want you to trust yourself. And this is something that I had to learn. I had to trust myself that I would deliver the message that I needed to deliver on my podcast. And that was like way back in the beginning when I was nervous Nelly and coming from the professional speaking world. And I had been on so many other people's podcasts, but all of a sudden I am speaking to myself, doing solo episodes on my own podcast. So trust yourself. And if you have to write yourself a sticky note, put it on somewhere where you can see it. And just trust yourself and remind yourself that what you are going to say, the words that come out of your mouth, are exactly the words that somebody needs to hear. So you're probably wondering, okay, Laurie-Ann, so how do I create that emotional connection with my voice? Your tone matters. Could you imagine if I had this monotone delivery of this 15-minute podcast? Would you even stick around till the end? You probably would not. You would have checked out within the first 30 seconds. And I wouldn't blame you either. There are podcasts that I've tried to listen to, and it's just like, whoa, like the energy of this host, I can't do it. Whenever I decide if I'm going to be on somebody's podcast, I don't always say yes to everybody. I have to go and listen to one of their previous podcasts. And if they're a new podcaster, there's got to be some sort of history that I already know this person. I've had conversations with them, so I already know that I jive with their energy. So your tone matters. There needs to be a variety so that the person who is listening to you, it draws them in. So here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about what's the emotion that you want your audience to feel when you are telling this story, when you are telling this fact, when you are sharing this case study. What's the emotion? Decide on what that emotion is And then I want you to embody that emotion yourself, because that's how people are going to end up feeling that emotion. And this is something that I learned very early on in my coaching days. If you're trying to have a difficult conversation, what's the energy that you want to show up with? Do you want to show up with love? Do you want to show up with anger? Because whatever emotion you show up in, they're going to feel that. And it's regardless of the actual words that you use. As a matter of fact, they actually say in communication, the words are only 7% of communication. So think about that for a moment. So you're probably wondering, well, what else makes up communication? 55% is body language and 38% is tone. So you can't actually see my body language unless you're watching this on YouTube, but you can hear my tone and you can hear the actual words. And I think when you take out that sight, if we're just talking audio, and I should probably see if anyone's ever done a study on this, when there is just audio, I wonder how much, instead of the words being 7%, how much the words, it might actually increase, and then the tone actually would increase. But I bet it's pretty proportional. The pace that you speak at, whether you're a fast speaker or a slow speaker. But as a speaker myself, I know when I want to talk fast and when I want to talk slower. It depends on what I'm talking about. Like if you're talking fast, it is about something that you are excited about and you want to evoke that emotion of excitement in your audience. And if you are speaking in person or even virtually, what happens when you start to pick up the pace is that your audience starts to lean in. They increase their heart rate, increase their breathing. I mean, there's physiological changes that happen when you start to speak fast versus when you speak a little slower, or maybe even something that's a little in between. What's the emotion that you're starting to feel now? I might start talking about something serious. Maybe something sad. When you start to speak slower, what happens to your audience is their heart rate decreases. Their breathing rate decreases. They might sit back in their chair a little bit more. If you find yourself that you are only speaking fast, maybe it's because you are nervous. And when you're nervous, you've heard me say this before again and again, you are in your head and not in your body, not grounded, and not being fully present with your audience. The other one that I think is so important is pausing. Silence does not mean that you don't know what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, silence is where you are giving your audience, the person that you are speaking with, whether you're on a discovery call, an interview, a podcast, it is the space that you are giving your audience time to answer a question, to ponder something that you just shared with them. Warren Buffett said, if you learn public speaking, you'll increase your value by 50%. Intentional pause. But I believe that if you learn public speaking skills, you'll increase your bottom line by 87%. Intentional pause again. Use pausing to your benefit because it is so powerful. And the last thing that I want to share with you is how to tap into your natural speaking energy. Really stop to think of, what do I sound like to someone? What is my voice power? Do I have voice power? Do I want a voice power? Have I ever stopped to think about, what is the power of my voice and what do I want it to be? This comes from my executive coaching days, where I would ask leaders, what kind of a leader do you want to be? What's your leadership style? Because too many times what I found was they would look up in their organization and be like, well, that person's like that, and they got promoted up there, so maybe that's what I need to be. And I'd be like, no, you can't be them. You have to be you. You're really good at being you. But what kind of a leader do you want to be? And I say the same thing with speaking. What kind of a speaker do you want to be? I want you to decide. And decide what that voice is. How is your voice going to be used to be a part of your speaking style? And pay attention to how you feel when you're speaking. Are you speaking with confidence? Are you speaking with passion? Are you speaking with a calmness? that also translates into calming your audience? Are you excited? Are you funny? Just pay attention. And does that match what you want your speaking style to be? And so I want you to make some of those changes. So I hope this is all making sense to you and that you really enjoyed what I'm helping you out with. And if you really want to tap into your voice and really uncover how you sound, record yourself talking about something that you love to talk about. Pick up your phone, hit record, and just record yourself for a couple of minutes. Then I want you to walk away from it because I don't want you to listen to it right away. But just note, how did I feel while I was talking about that? Jot those notes down. How did I feel? Was I in my head? Was I in my body? Was I speaking with vigor? Was I speaking too fast? Did I feel awkward? Just write those notes down. And then the next day, I want you to go back and listen to it again. And then see from these clear eyes, what did that sound like? Jot those notes down. Then compare those two pieces of paper. Compare the right away notes that you felt afterwards. And then the next day, how did you feel? What were those notes after you listened to yourself again? And if today's conversation got you thinking about how you are showing up, and maybe you're even realizing you've been waiting a little too long to actually step into some bigger opportunities. And maybe it's time to start working on your voice and your message and how you show up so that you'll be available for bigger opportunities. Let's hop on a discovery call together. In just a short conversation, I'll help you uncover where you're overlooking some great speaking and visibility opportunities, where you might be leaving money on the table, and how speaking can position you as the go-to expert in your industry. This is a no-pressure discovery call, just real insights to help you grow. And if you're ready to finally use speaking to build your brand and your business, let's have a chat. Head over to speakandstandout.com/discovery to grab a spot on my calendar, and I can hardly wait to connect with you. So before I let you go, I just want you to know one thing. Your voice is more than just the words that you are using. It carries energy, emotion, and your presence, whether you are right here, right now with them, or if you're in the future, or if you're in the past. People don't just listen to what you say, they feel how you say it. And when you bring your authenticity and intention to your speaking, that's when you become truly unforgettable. So here's my challenge for you. I want you to pay attention to your voice. Just do that voice exercise. And also, when you are speaking with other people, I just want you to notice how you're speaking. What's the energy behind your words? What does it sound like? And also just note how other people sound. Do they sound like they're fully present? Do they sound like they've got some energy behind their words? And if you want to take it a step further, feel free to DM me over on Instagram at Laurie-Ann.Mirabito and tell me what you noticed. I love having conversations with my listeners, and that's a great place to connect with me and have a conversation. So until next time, I want you to speak with energy, speak with intention, and most importantly, speak with your heart and be in demand.